Cool. So let's take a look at implementing some of that Rails JWT stuff that we were talking about yesterday. This is very much going to be following the optional JWT off in Redux and Rails thing in Canvas, this one here. So, but we'll do our own domain, so it's not an exact copy. Just following the major beats, and we're going up from there. What kind of stuff do we want to do? I'm going to make a to-do list because that sounds like fun. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Or before I share my screen, any questions about what we're going to be doing or any requests for covering anything in particular, anything like that before we jump in? Cool. Okay. Now I will share my screen. One, hide meeting controls, move everyone over to the monitor so I can see you. Cool. All righty. So I made a directory for our project, I think. Let's see. Terminal. Let's get it nice and big. So I'm going to go into our there yet. Great. Let's see. So in here, I'm going to create two repos. I'm going to create a repo for the backend. I'm going to create a repo for the front end. They will talk through tokens, and we'll see how that goes. I am going to call my to-do app one thing well, because that's a project I had on my back burner for a long time and never did. So maybe I'll do it now. Let's see. Cool. So let's go ahead and make the backend first. And again, we're going to kind of follow the broad strokes of that that optional JWT lesson in Canvas. If I what do you call it when you go off the path? If I veer from it a little bit, that's cool. Don't worry about it. We'll make it go one way or the other. And as usual, this is live coding, and pretty much every time I've done this, it has taken a wrong turn here and there. There have been all sorts of problems, which is reflective of the actual experience. So let's see how that goes, and hope it's not too bad. Cool. So let's start up our Rails project first. So I'm just going to do Rails new. I'm going to call it one thing well backend. And I'm going to do the API flag, which means that it's not going to make any views. It is going to give it tests, but we're not going to use them really. Yeah, so this will just be because we're just serving JSON. That's what we want. So if our Rails doesn't explode, yeah, there we go. Cool. So it's making all the things. It has made a Git repository for me. It's doing all the bundle install stuff. Yada, yada, yada. One of the things this avoids by putting things in two separate directories, like we saw, Rails will, I think unless you explicitly tell it to, it will create a Git repository for your project. If you use create React app, unless you explicitly tell it not to, it will also do that. If you do those in the same directory for some reason, there's going to be problems with Git. So that is one advantage of doing them separately. In fact, I'm going to open up another window here, and we can see that when the shell comes up, there you go. There's our one thing well backend. I'm going to go ahead and do our front end and get that installed at the same time. So I'm going to just use a create React app, and we'll call it one thing well front end. Front end. I don't need to give anything special there. So I'm just going to let that run. It'll take a minute. Oh, come on, man. Yeah, create React app updated to a new version while we were asleep. So let's just reinstall it. Let's see if that works now. All right, cool. We'll let that cook for a little bit. We are done inside here. Cool. So let's go ahead and jump into our backend. And as usual, I didn't say up top, but if there's anything you have questions about or want more explanation about, or to go deeper into or explain more, or I'm not explaining in a way that you understand, just holler, stop me, and we'll get it. Cool. So there are a few things we need to add to our Rails, install a few gems. We need to install the JWT gem. And oh yeah, oh boy, we're going to add the active model serializers, which helps that get the models serialized. We're also going to install Faker, which I don't know if you were following along with the news, but the guy who made Faker had a meltdown and checked in a whole bunch of bad code, and Faker was broken for a couple days for everyone in the world who's using it, which is a lot of people. New people took over the project. He got banned from GitHub, and everything's great now, I guess, except not. He had good reasons for doing it, but so let's go ahead and do this. We'll do bundle install installs npm. I'll add JWT. We'll bundle the what is it? Active underscore model underscore serializers. I'm going to go ahead and add Faker. We might not need it, but I don't think we're going to need it, but it's nice to have it. Let's see how our npm install is going. Great, doing good. So over here, I'm just going to jump into our front end. Cool. Everything should be installed. I'm just going to do one extra one just to be sure that everything's all good. Cool, everything's all good. Everything's good over here. Just superstition on my part. Everything should be installed, but you know, every once in a while. So cool. So let's pop this open. Let's just look at the back end here. I'm going to open up two separate code instances, one for my front end and one for my back end. One for my back end, one for my front end. Just because I like to keep those. If you wanted to, you could go to the root directory, and this is another like big problem I have personally with the monorepo, is that if I have both the Rails and the React stuff in the same directory that has them both, it's real hard for me to like, and maybe it's just my broken brain, but it's real hard for me to tease out which is which. So keeping them in separate code instances at least really helps me a lot. Maybe it will help you too. So now we have those. I'm just going to quit terminal. We don't need them anymore. And we've got these buddies here. Cool. Let's take a look at our backend. A couple things we need to do before we jump in earnest. I'm going to open up my gem file. Yes, I am. Come on, buddy. Okay, I can double click it. There's my gem file. We need to uncomment a couple things. We need to uncomment the crypt here, because that's what we're going to be using to make digest of our password with. And the other thing we want to do is uncomment cores. Cores is a thing that protects us theoretically from these specific kind of attacks, cross-origin resource sharing attacks, which basically means that you can't make certain kinds of requests from other origins, other domains, or other origins, including the same domain with a different port. There's a subset of attacks that people can make that can unfriendly share information between a legitimate site and a hostile site. This mitigates that somewhat. It also makes it more difficult for us to do our work, but in the name of security. Cool. So, and we will also have to, for the core stuff, this is going to be in cores. Why are you being so slow, buddy? Why is that being so slow? I don't know. Cool. This is gonna be in where? It's gonna be in config. It's gonna be in initializers. Are we there yet? Still not there yet. Okay. And it's gonna be this file here. Basically, we just need to uncomment the stuff here. And we need to change this example.com to everywhere. What this is doing when Rails starts up, it reads these initialization config files, or all these config files. This one is for cores specifically. Middleware is any kind of software that runs in a web server that sits between getting the request from your port 80 or wherever it's running on your socket to doing the main controller logic, more or less. So there's a bunch of different little sub-modules in there that the request goes through that does all sorts of stuff like parsing out the params and turning JSON into an object that you can use, and taking care of the session stuff and all that stuff. In this case, the middleware is hooking up the core stuff for us. And so what we are saying is that it's going to make cores allow stuff from any origin, any resource, any method, just to make our life easier. Cool. So I think that you have to make sure to change that to a star, or else you're gonna have a bad day. Is that everything we need there? I think so. Cool. So to log in, we are going to need users that log in. So let's go ahead and create some passwords, some users. And cool. So I'm going to use a generator here. Everything's running really slow. I'm not sure why. So I'm just going to do a Rails G. I'm going to follow along the little recipe here. I'm going to make a model. That model is going to be a user. I'm going to do the options on the command line just so I don't have to do them in the files. So I'm just going to say, so our user is not going to be associated with anything yet because we're just hooking up the user stuff. But we are going to hook up the fields on the user, the of it. So one thing it's going to need is a username.
Can I pause you here?
Absolutely, yeah.
What makes you? What tells you you want to make a model versus just doing like the resource or?
Yeah. So I'm going to make the controller and stuff separately, just because when you're doing the authorization stuff, or authentication stuff, there's a lot of fiddly things and you're going to be pulling most of it out anyway. For most things, I would be doing that. In this case, I'm just going to do the model straight up, partially for demonstration purposes, partially because I'd just be erasing a lot of it anyway.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, normally, I would totally do it. Good question, though. Cool. We need a username. We're going to need a password, but remember that we're not storing the actual password in our database. Rails specifically has a little mechanism that we're going to hook up that is going to automatically take the password and digest it with bcrypt and throw it in the database for us. So we're actually going to make the field the password digest. Cool. And we'll give it give them a user is going to have a full name. Or we'll just give them the, what do we want? Give them the, let's see, user need. Yeah, design decision so hard. A user is just going to have a email. Yeah, users have email addresses. Sure. Why not? And of course, we can always add stuff later on. Great. So we have created a migration here. Can I jump there with? Why is this not working? I don't know. It's not indexing right. Cool. That makes that way less useful. So we're going to look in DB. And here is our user migration, username, password digest, email. Great. We don't need timestamps, but leave them there anyway. And it's also creating our model. Model's just straight back. We don't need the tests, but that's fine. We don't need to get rid of there. But we do need a controller. So I am going to use a generator to make the controller. And so instead of just hooking it up to /users, we're going to implement this as like an API. One of the conventions that is followed a little bit more than half the time is that we are going to host it under a /API path and a /API v1 path. In theory, so a couple reasons. This makes it explicit that this is an API. You could also host it under api.whatever.com. The real important part is it also distinguishes it from if you're serving any other content from your website, if you're serving CSS or images or JavaScript or whatever, or if you have like a home HTML page, those will not be served from the API. The V1 is more important, I think, and that is so that when you make an API of any kind, you're going to use it, or you're going to give it to people to use, and you're going to document it. And at some point, inevitably, someone's going to ask for changes, or you're going to want to change things, or it's going to evolve in some way, and you're going to want to change how the API works. Often. A lot of people will not use that new API. A lot of people will have written their applications to use the original API and not care about the new one. So leaving that one in the /v1 resource is a courtesy to them. And if they want to migrate to the new one, you would make a new one in V2. So that's the short version. That's why we're making this controller in a separate place. So I'm going to do Rails G con. I've got to spell controller right. Much of programming depends on spelling things right, or at least typing them right. And so I'm going to do API v1 users, because our controller is plural. So this is going to, if we watch in our controllers over here as we generate it, it's going to create a new folder called API. In that folder is going to be a folder called v1, and in there is going to be our controller. And we can see that the module, class, is also namespaced out here to API v1. So when we talk about it later, which we may have to do, we'll do that. It's created a test, which we don't care about right now. I'm going to throw a serializer in here to user. I'll give us a little serializer down here. And while we're here, I'm just going to migrate our stuff. If everything worked, I should be happy. Great. Running via Spring Preloader. Cool. So we have created our user with username, password, digest, and email. So to use that, and this is where Rails is cooler than a lot of things, one of the few places. Normally, to do all the digest stuff, we would have to do that by hand. We would grab the password, we would make a digest of it, we would insert it into the database ourselves. Rails is cool in that it has a macro to do that for us. Again, a macro is just a function that writes code and attaches it to our class. And that macro has secure password. And just by putting that in there, we're going to have a, when it gets the password in, it's going to hash it with the crypt, which we installed as a gem. It's going to insert it into the database just like any other field in the model, and it'll do its magic. The downside is that it's a little bit opaque. If you are not already familiar with how this works, you might go trolling through the models controllers to find out where it's hashing the thing, doing that work. It's doing it in a secret place in Rails. So, but that's the overall trade-off with Rails, is that like things are a certain way and you're supposed to know that. If you don't, and you come in to a Rails application and you start looking for things being done by hand, you're going to have a hard time finding those. And that has been me many times. We also want to add a validation on here. So we're going to have it validate that there is, in fact, a username, because we are going to need a username. And it's going to need to validate that the username is unique. Yes. And we don't care if they are the same case or not. So we're just going to do this. So that will validate that every user has a unique username, but they can be, uppercase MARC and lowercase MARC are two different things. Cool. So that is our controller for our user. Questions so far? Cool. I don't understand why that's not doing that. So if we look at our routes for a second, I believe that is going to have nothing there yet. That's fine. So we're going to need to add those. I'm going to do that first, I think. So we need to route requests for our users in there. And to do that, we're going to need to, this is a point of philosophy, I think. We're going to need to namespace it to our API v1, and we're going to have to create the resource for our users. And we're also going to have to create some routes for our logging in and our other stuff there. I think we can just use a create to create a user. So we'll talk about this as I type. So I'm going to namespace stuff out first. Namespace API, and there, do a dir. I'm going to namespace out RV1, do a dir. Cool. So that's just saying when they go to /API /v1, we're gonna look for routes in here. So let's get our resource for users. And right now we only want to create, I think, we want to change that later, we can. So this is going to create a new user with a password. We also want to let a user log in. So the point of philosophy is that attached to the users? Is that attached to another resource? Is that just sitting empty? In this case, I'm just going to have it sit on the API because we're logging into the API itself. And the reason we're not putting it in users is because I like to, and I think it's a best practice. When you're doing a login, it's going to be a post. For two reasons. A, we need to send username and password, and we don't want to just send the bare URL across with a get. The other thing is the more philosophy oriented part is that when you are logging in, are you getting something? Are you creating something? Are you changing something? Are you deleting something? I think you're creating a new session, for a better word. You're creating a new me being in the app. And since users already has a create, if we could put 2 creates on users, I would. We can't, so I'm just gonna put it on the root of the API here. So if we do a post to /API/v1 and send it a username and password, we want to do our thing. But that means we need to send it. So I'm going to do a post to login, and that's going to be the route. So when we want to log in, we're going to do localhost API v1 login. We're going to post to that URL. But I need to send it to something. So I'm actually going to have another controller that is not a user's controller, that is an authorization controller. I'm going to make that by hand, I think. And to do that, we're going to send auth create. So this is creating a new authorization attempt, basically. So I'm going to have a auth controller that's going to have a create method in there. Yeah, I'll leave that there for now. I'm going to add a profile because it's in the walkthrough, so why not? That's gonna be a get. I'm going to say profile, and that's going to go to users profile. So that's kind of going to be a show. I'm just calling it something different here. Cool. Let's add the create method to the user's controller. Bada bing. Cool. So def create. So when we create a new user, let's create a new user. And I'm going to assign it to a variable. So in the little walkthrough, it has you create a class variable like this. I don't think that's necessary. I think you can just create a regular variable. If I'm wrong, we'll find out. So I'm just going to say user equals user create, and we're going to pass in user params. Good question. It's a private method. We're going to do our strong params here. So we're going to say params, and we're going to call require on that. Remember, params is a params object that has methods. So we're going to do require. We're going to need a user that permits the username. And so this implies that we're sending the data in a certain way, right? We're saying in params, we're requiring that there is a user key with an object attached to it. So in that object, we're going to permit only username, password. So once we create that, we need to see if it's okay or not. So if the user is valid, if the user is valid, we're going to render the JSON back. And this is where our serializer comes in. So we're going to do user. We have our user serializer down here. And I'm just going to create it with that. So user serializer, new with user. And send back status. I don't know that that is 100% necessary. I don't know. Let's see if it works. And then if it works, I'm going to pull that out and see if it still works. Cool. What if it's not okay? Well, then we want to send something else. We're going to render some JSON back with error. And, exclamation point. Status. I'll give it, they want unprocessed. Okay. Unprocessable entity. Unprocessable entity. And that's going to be a 400 something error. It's going to be a 403, I think. What's it going to be? Yeah. 422. So basically, it's going to send back a code to the browser that says, you sent me something wrong. That's what 400 errors are, you did something wrong. 500 errors are, I did something wrong. Where you is the user. So let's hook up the serializer while we're here. Cool. And we want to send back we don't want to send back the ID. We want to send back the username. And we want to send back the email. But we do not want to send back the password because that would be bad to send back the password that we just sent over to have it sit there in the browser. Cool. So I think that's that. So that's going to create a new user. There. Anything else we want to do? So that's pretty good. Yeah. I feel good about that. Let's see if it works. I'm going to use Insomnia instead of Postman because that's what I like. Do I like? Use the same one here. Is my server running? Excellent question. Spicy drama. This is my back end. I did a migrate already, so I'm just going to Rails server up. Ooh, those don't exist yet. I'm just going to comment them out. Cool. Until we get them. What did I do wrong there? Let's see. Such a big error. Such a big error. No good. No good. No good. API create is not a supported controller name. I don't believe you. What to check tools and check control action. Namespace API, namespace v1, resources, users, only create, only create. There we go. Let's try that. Cool. So here's our URL. It's running. Should be yay, we're on Rails. We're on Rails. Great. Let's go ahead and hit our API v1 users create. And to create, we're going to send a post. And we're going to want some JSON here. Cool. So remember, we did the controller here that requires a user object with the username and password and email. So let's do that. User like that. Username is Mark. Oh, these need quotes. JSON. Mark. Click on password is cool. So there is our user. We are sending the v1 users here. Give a little space and see what happens when we send it. Is it going to be okay? No, it's not. Let's see. Undefined local variable. Our method has secure password. All right. Should get the same right there. All right. Has secure password. Did I do something wrong there? That's a user. Users control. Oh, this doesn't belong in the controller. This belongs in the model. Controller doesn't care about that. Yeah, so the model is going to validate all that stuff. So, okay, let's try that again. Do I need to restart? Maybe. Cool. Let's see what happens now. Nothing. User, did I not? Users controller. No, I didn't take it out. I just copied it. Okay, one more time. 95% here. All right, cool. So we are getting back a 201 created. Cool. We are getting back the data with our username and email, not the password. And hey, it has inserted into users all of our stuff. Here is what the digested or hashed password looks like. If you look at it closely, you can see that it has a couple sections here. It has a 3 sections separated by $signs here. This big section is actually the hashed password here. The 2A, I think that's where it stores the salt. Salt is basically a extra little string to make it a little bit more random. I don't know if that's true here though. 12 is basically saying run bcrypt 12 times, which makes it a little bit slower. Not necessarily more secure, but just runs it over and over again. But that's the whole thing. So put all that into the database. It looks like our user controller works. So our create works. And this is going to be the same no matter how you're implementing the login part. The creating the user is going to be the same either way. You're creating a user with at least a username and a password digest in there. This is going to be the same however you do it. Yeah. So that's creating a user. Questions so far? Cool. Looking good. So let's log in. So login is going to have two major steps, really. It's going to have the actual doing the login, which is getting the password and the username and password, seeing if they match. That again is going to be the same regardless of what you do after that. The second part is where we're going to be sending the JWT up and making sure that it's good with a request. So let's do that part. Cool. Oh, before we do that, I want to see if this matters here on our. I don't think it does, but I'm willing to be wrong. If we just say user there, I feel like it should just use the user serializer for us without having to make a new one. Let's see if that's true. So actually, no, before we do that, let's verify that our uniqueness works. If I try and do another of the same, it should give us an error. Can't create user. Great. So I'm going to get rid of this. Bam. I'm going to create Mark 2. It doesn't care if the email is the same. This should do the same thing. I have no idea if it's going to. It is. Cool. I don't know why it's in the walkthrough then. That's so dumb. So yeah, if the serializer is named the same as your model, it uses it automatically. I don't know why it has that in there. Hunch verified. Cool. Let's move on. We want to log in a user. Great. So let's go back to our routes here, and this is where we're going to log in. So we are going to need to create our profile or our authorization controller and hook that up to that. So let's see, what's the best plant tag here? Let's see what they got here. Yeah, that works. That works. That works. Okay, cool. Yeah, crazy. All right, yeah, let's do it that way. Why not? Cool. So in our controllers, we have an application controller. The application controller inherits from the main action controller, which is like active record, and all of our classes inherit from that. So any class we inherit from there is going to have the stuff that the application controller has in it. So if we want stuff available to all of our other stuff, we're going to put it in here. Yeah, look at that. Great, cool. So let's set that up here. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. Just walk up through what they got for us here. Cool. So do I want to start from the back end there or there's two ways to come at this. I think I want to do it the other way around. So forgive me for a moment while I look this up.
Mark, can I ask a question while you're Googling stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have the monolithic kind of thing going here, and in our application controller on line 2, we have this include application controller cookies. Do we need that for the token method? Okay.
Nope, because the and that's where stuff is going to differ. It's going to be where this is sending a token along in the headers. The session is going to be storing the session key in the cookies and sending that along. So if we're not using cookies to store our token, which we're not, we don't need to include that cookies functionality.
Sweet, thanks.
Cool, let's do this. I think I understand why they did it the other way. I'm going to go back to there for just a minute, because we want to send along not just the user here, we want to send along a token back with our response if we're logging in. So let's do it this way. So I'm going to send along a token, or I'll call it JWT. This means I need to create a token. So here's where the JWT specific stuff comes in here. When they log in, we need to take the user and encode some information about it into the token and send that token back so it can be sent with requests. So let's just encode a token. So we're going to say our token is call it encode token. What do we want to code in there? So one of the cool things that you can do with JWT that you can't do with other methods is that JWT isn't just like a cookie or a random string. JWT is actually an encrypted object. So that means that you can store information in it. So right now we're just going to store the user ID and say it's user ID because we get ID from the user when we create it. But we could send along anything. We could send a timestamp. We could send if we don't want to look up the user's name every time, we could send the user's name in there. If there's other stuff going on in our application, we can send that back in the token and have that made available to whoever decrypts the token, which will be our client. So that is a cool thing. Right now, we're just going to use user ID. Of course, so we're just going to encode a token and send the token up. What does that mean? Where is this encode token coming from? Well, we can make a private method that does it. But like we were saying before, we're probably going to want to have some of the JWT functionality available to all of our controllers because we're going to be checking for authentication and stuff. So I feel like a good place for that would be in our application controller. And since our user's controller inherits from our application controller, everything in application controller is going to come along with it. We're also going to have to update our serializer, I think. Is that true? Is that true? Maybe. I'm going to do that now. I think that's the way to do it. We'll find out. So we can call encode token here because that is in this class inherited from this class here. So how do we encode the token? Great question. So we're passing in the object here that we're going to be encoding, just as the user ID in it. So we're going to need to call it a payload. So basically we want to take an object here and transform it with the JWT library to a token. This is a little bit complicated. The way you do it is JWT code payload. Not that complicated. The thing that we do need to do is give it a secret key to encrypt with. This can be anything. I'm just going to write out my secret key here. That is a bad key. You probably want this to be something long and indecipherable, and you probably don't want it in your actual code. You probably want to grab it from an environment variable that you keep somewhere that's not checked in. Because if someone goes into your GitHub repo and finds your secret key, they can do whatever they like with your JWTs, which we don't want. So when we deploy, I'll show you how to make that happen. Right now, just for simplicity, I'm going to leave it like that. And that is that for the encoding. That's all we need to do to get our JWT. So let's see if I'm lying about any of this. I bet I am about something. Yeah, what do we get? Unexpected. Where is unexpected? And in arouse. What's unexpected about that? What did I do wrong there? I did wrong there. Oh, you know what? That's a macro. It doesn't need a colon. That's going to create that code for us. So let's see what happens now. Same thing. Okay. Missing action key on routes. Check your routes. Missing action. Is it action login? Action. How do routes work? Anyone know how it works? Two. That's the action there. All right. One more time. Undefined method JWT. Cool. Where's that? In our controller. User's controller. User's controller. Here, there. Is that going to be inside there? Is that how they do that? I bet it is. Let's see. Yeah. Nope. Yeah. No. Nope. Undefined method. That doesn't seem right. Well, I created it. That's good. Undefined method in create. I'm assuming it means that on line 6. That doesn't look like a method to me. What could that be doing? Render JSON JWT token. What are we doing wrong here? Nope, that's right. What if we do? I don't think it's going to change anything. That shouldn't change anything. But it does look bad. Good. Undefined method JWT for user. Oh, is it in the serializer maybe? Didn't need to add that to the serializer. So that. Okay, let's see what happens now. Mark 5. Hey, there we go. Right, because it's not on the user. It's not on the user. It's in the JSON. We're not serializing the JSON. Cool. So I can, in fact, take this off again. Serializers, am I right? Mark 6. Same password should give us the same hash there. Hey, cool. I'm not using the serializer. Why not? Huh. Weird. It's giving us a password digest. I don't like that. Okay. Back to the way it was before. Mark 7. Great. Okay. That's what we want. I wonder why it's not using the serializer. Huh. Maybe because we're adding that there. So we are sending back our user information with the username and email. And we are also sending back this token. And if you look closely, kind of like the Bcrypt one, we've got some chunks separated by periods. I forget exactly what the chunks are. One is the data, the last one there. Another one I think is a signature so that you can sort of verify that it's all right. It's an open spec. You can find out what it means. But that's what a JWT looks like. So that's the token that we're going to save on the user side. And we're going to send back what we need to. So now that we've got that part done, let's see, what time is it? Coming up on the hour. I feel like this is a good place to break. Anything over an hour is inhumane, I think. I think I'm gonna stop this part here. To recap, we've only worked on the back end so far. We've made our we went into our gem file. We added our Bcrypt and our where is it? Something else. What was it? RJWT here? And all these stuff here. What else did we add here? Our cores, right? We're going to need later. So we added all the junk that we need in there. We added some routes to create a user and to log in. We're not doing the login for real yet. We're just creating that user and getting that JWT back. But when we do create that user here and create in our, get this here, in our model, we're using this has secure password thing. So that says when you get something with password, and this is one of the, I'm not going to say failings, but one of the restrictions. Password has to be called password when you send it in. You can't call it something else. Rails. So it does need a password specifically named that. It will automatically save that password in the database for you. And we're making sure that it has a unique username as well. So when we create one, it's going to take our user params. It's going to create that user with that username and password and email address, like we say here. If everything's cool, we're going to create a JWT token, a JOT, and we're going to send it back with the user information. Otherwise, nah. We're putting that in the application controller so it's accessible to other controllers, which we'll see down the road. But basically, all we're doing here is we're encoding the user ID with a secret key that will, right now it's in code, we'll define it in an environment variable down the road for security purposes. So that when we log in, just like magic, log in with our username and password and our email, we get back the user information minus the password, and we do get a JOT token. And that is the token we're going to be using to make requests with later on. That's a good hour's worth of work. Questions? That's a lot of stuff to digest.
Yeah, we've got a question. We've got some internal group discussion going on if we should, which authentication method to use. If we stick with the monolithic repo, have we kind of just gone over everything we need to know to get the JWT to work with it, or are there more hoops we have to jump through?
Yeah, so this is just the creating and getting token.
Right.
Next time I'll do an hour on sending requests with the token and then authenticating that that token is good. So there are more stuff to do. I don't want to just overload people with more than an hour's worth of stuff right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess like what I'm wondering is by the end of that next hour, will we have covered everything for like both camps to be able to use JWT regardless of monolithic or split? Okay, cool.
Yeah, and as a preview, basically we're going to be adding stuff into the application controller to basically verify the token, and we'll be adding a method called like is logged in. Or I think it's just like logged in. Call it logged in. Logged in. And we'll return true or false. Return true or false, depending on whether they're logged in or not. And we can use that as a sort of gate for things that we need to be logged in for.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't want to blow anyone's brain too much right now. Cool. Good question. Other questions? Awesome. I'll post this video up here. Let me stop sharing and take a look at the calendar. Awesome. What's the calendar look like? The calendar looks like how about, would it be cool to do it after blog presentations today so you have the weekend to sort of chew on stuff? How do people feel about that? Is that too much?
Are blogs after lunch?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, let's plan on that. Unless people object, or actually, no, I'd like to get out after blogs. Let's make it an early Monday thing, and that will give you the weekend to digest this. If you want to go through the thing in Canvas, that will divulge the secrets of the second half. Let's do that first thing Monday, and maybe you'll have run into some problems at that point that I can help answer. That might be the best way to do it. I'll also check this code in. It is a little bit of a pain in the butt to do. So it'll be good to have a, I want to call it a template, but it's a nice reference to have. Cool. Other questions? Awesome. Thanks for hanging out. I'll post this up in the usual places, and I'll see you all after lunch for blogs.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.